this year coming up marks the 25th anniversary of AOLP.
Yes,
Yeah, so that's pretty exciting.
it is.
And I can remember when I joined AOLP, which was in 2009, and I was literally like the youngest guy in the room, and I was a young pup, and looking up to young pup or young puck, either way.
Right.
I was both. And I was looking up to everybody. But, this year we're celebrating the 25th anniversary, and I think it would do us a lot of service to learn a little bit about Bill Laughlin,
Sure.
and to learn a little bit about the LVLIA,
Yeah.
Low Voltage Lighting Institute of the Americas,
Yeah. that's
right? Because that was the original
That
association.
It is.
And if I'm correct here, and kind of maybe fill in the stories, this was like a brainchild of Bill
Correct.
and one of his trips. Can you
Correct.
tell us about that?
So Bill used to do an advanced university every year. So, and that would be at the islands. A lot of it was at the Turks and Caicos Islands, where one of our friends lives now. They would have this big university down there, and they would go over a lot of different topics. And, of course, they had a great old time as well. But what Bill thought of was to help fund this project. And I know that he provided a lot of startup money for the organization, and that's where they called it the Low Voltage Landscape LVLIA. Yeah, exactly. So originally it was designed for contractors to be with contractors. And what they would do is they would meet with each other, and they would go over different ideas, and then they would create certification for other contractors across the country to make sure that there was an actual certification for landscape lighting. And that's what led us into what the organization is today, where we have the cold program and the CLVLT. I should know that. I'm one of them.
The CLVLT, right?
Exactly.
Certified Low Voltage Lighting Technician.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and that's what led us to that today. I mean, with his vision of starting it up, and of course, it evolved. It evolved. So now we have different manufacturers, many different contractors involved. So it's really blossomed to a great place.
Well, and the organization's grown quite a bit over the years.
Absolutely.
And there was one of the founding members reached out to me recently and just kind of shared all that with how that was a brainchild of Bill, and how excited that particular member was with literally guys like myself that have picked up the baton and taken it.
Absolutely.
And then who's going to take it next?
Exactly.
So I know there's a lot of people out there that know who Bill is, but there's a lot of people that have no idea who Bill Laughlin is. So who is he?
So Bill Laughlin, give you a little bit of real background about Bill. Bill was actually orphaned when he was a child. He was actually left at a train station back in the Depression. And if you know anything, if you follow old Western movies, Tom Mix, the old black and white actor, actually wanted to adopt Bill and raise him. But being a single man at the time, they wouldn't allow him to have a child. So Bill was actually raised in the foster care system. And one of the things that he did as he was growing up was he used to shoot coyotes for local farmers to make money. When the Second World War broke out, he joined the Navy, and he was on the USS Trepang attack submarine in the Pacific. And in that time, he became an electrician's mate, and that's how he got involved in electrical.
Okay.
To begin with.
That's an interesting story.
Yeah. And so when he arrived back from the war, he created a company called Laughlin Electric, and then he created a company called Loran Alarm. So because of him being in the Navy, he put this company together called Loran, which was it's like long range navigation, something or other. I'm not that familiar with it, but that's what he told me years ago. Was he thought, oh, I can be pretty smart and I can get government contracts and things because it looks like I'm Loran. So, and that was actually Lachlan and Randy, his friend, who they started this business with.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Bill actually started doing landscape lighting, and he learned the landscape lighting portion from Bill and Nancy Eppert, who were Frank Nightingale's, Nancy was Frank Nightingale's daughter.
Okay.
So Frank Nightingale was actually the founder of garden lighting, commercially manufactured garden lighting. And a lot of the concepts that Frank Nightingale started off with, Bill adapted. Now, the story goes, now this is coming from Bill, he told me this, and there's a lot of different varieties of this. I think I've got the right story, but Bill actually was called out to Walter Annenberg's house in Palm Springs. Now, there's a lot of variations. This is the variation I know of.
Okay.
Okay? But Bill was called to Walter Annenberg's house, and it was told that he was having a party for a very special guest.
Understood.
So Bill went out there with his ledger and started making all of his notes and things to go and buy 120 volt lighting.
Uh-huh.
So he went out to this job site, looked all around, went to his local electrical supply house. This is what I need, he said. They said, we won't have this in time for your party. So Bill was kind of an ornery old cowboy type guy and kind of, said a few choice words and left. So there's a 60-mile drive from Palm Springs back to Redlands, and at those days there was only one road. So he drove all the way back to Redlands, and it was getting dark, and he saw the headlights coming towards him, and he got an idea. The next day he gathered up all the juice cans, coffee cans, mayonnaise jars, film tubes, funnels, all these different things, and he wired them up with automotive lamps.
Interesting.
Okay? Now, Bill being the technical
Super
whiz,
resourceful.
yeah, very resourceful. You think about it. Being on a submarine, there was no place to pull over to get a transformer. Exactly. Yeah. So he knew how to wind his own transformers. Okay, and then he also got deep cycle marine batteries to power other areas. So that way he took this into 12 volt. Okay,
interesting.
So that's how we kind of got started with this.
That's the birth
of 12 volt.
All right. Now, tell me about this party.
Okay, so this party, Bill ended up going out there and installing all these makeshift fixtures that he did, and the party was actually for President Eisenhower. It was for Eisenhower.
Old Ike.
Yeah, Old Ike.
Yeah.
And the story goes, like the one that Bill told me, is that President Eisenhower asked Walter Annenberg, who did this lighting? And he said Bill Lachlan did this lighting. So somehow they got together, and he did another job for President Eisenhower. And he ended up doing lighting at the White House for every single president except for Bill Clinton.
Interesting.
So it was every single president.
Since then,
yeah.
And now, obviously, in 2025, Bill passed away a good while ago. I know he lived into his 90s.
Well, yeah, 2007 he passed away. Passed away in 2007.
Lived well into his 90s.
Yeah.
Now, so we can make that connection, Bill Lachlan founded which company?
Loran,
but that was also... The landscape lighting company was what?
Was Nightscaping.
So Nightscaping.
Yeah.
So when somebody says Nightscaping, they're referring to Bill Lachlan's company.
Correct.
Yeah.
Now,
and it's kind of known or not known, maybe it is, that Nightscaping was literally the founder and original low voltage lighting.
Absolutely.
And that's the story.
Yeah.
Like low voltage started at a party in Palm Springs for Old Ike.
Yeah. Now it is
That's pretty crazy, isn't it, guys?
Yeah.
That's a great story.
Absolutely.
So all of us out there that are out earning today are living, doing low voltage lighting.
From what Loran created.
We can thank Bill.
Absolutely.
And we can thank Ike.
Absolutely.
It's great.
Absolutely.
I love it.
Yeah.
Isn't it great to be an American?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And to have...
And it's also great to have the history, and thank you for telling me.
Absolutely. Having the legacy of what Bill created, I can only imagine what he would be what he would be thinking if he was still with us,
And
right?
so your history with Bill dates back a long ways from what I understand.
So I went to visit Bill Laughlin when I was a distributor. I started off in the turf and irrigation business, and it was like the mid '90s. I asked my boss. I said, everybody's going to this nightscaping Loran University. I want to go too. So I went over there, and Bill taught me landscape lighting and referred it to irrigation. So I was like, oh, the light bulb went off, if you will, right? So I learned, when we were out there with that class, he showed us all the different beam spreads, and he had this unbelievable demo room that was all landscaped, and he showed different targets and how you could pinpoint those items, and then even integrate like a little bit of color into it. It blew me away.
And what decade was that?
So that was the mid '90s.
So early to mid '90s.
Yes, early to mid '90s. So after that, after I got back from there, my head was spinning, because it was just so cool. And so I remember coming home, and I told my wife, I said, I need to buy a demo kit. And she says, what do you need that for? I said, I know I could go out and do this and make some money. So one of the things that I bought from Bill years ago, of course I went through my distributor and I bought everything from them, but I bought a bar, and it had all the different MR16s, and this was back in the halogen days, right?
Yeah, because there was a lot of them.
There was a lot of them.
They came from showrooms like theaters and museums,
jewelry cases, right?
Yeah, all that and all
Absolutely.
that show stuff, interior.
Absolutely. So I had this box, and I still have it today, which I updated with LEDs. But I carried this box around with me, and I had a little lantern battery that I'd plug it into, and I could go out onto the job site, and I learned how to do the beam spreads, and I learned how to light different objects because of that little box. I didn't have like a box of fixtures, but I learned how to do it with all those beam spreads. So it was about making that effect happen.
Yeah, which is the whole magic.
Absolutely.
Now, back to that, just real quick on the Palm Springs story. Do you know what decade that was in?
That was 1959.
So Ike was president.
Yes, he was.
So Ike was pre-Kennedy.
Yeah,
because it went
Ike
Ike
was
and
pre-Kennedy.
then Kennedy. Yeah.
Yes.
So all
exactly.
right, just to kind of put that reference.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So then 90s are along. You're working with Bill. Bill's got Nightscaping University.
Yes.
Is that correct? Nightscaping
University.
And they were kind of the preeminent at that time.
Yes.
And everybody was going to the Nightscaping University, learning, doing this.
100%.
Nightscaping was the premier brand. There were others, but they were the dominant player.
They were.
And then as we moved into early 2000, late 90s, early 2000, is when we kind of segued into this brainchild of a trip where the LVLIA,
yes.
Low Voltage Lighting Institute of America,
yes.
is when it kind of came about.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how long have you been involved in LVLIA, or what is now AOLP?
So I've been involved with AOLP. I was never really involved in LVLIA.
Gotcha.
I was actually working for Bill at the time. I actually was employed by him. So what happened was that they started gathering together. I became a member of AOLP when I joined Brilliance back in 2015.
So Brilliance came in 2015.
They actually came in
way earlier
than that.
Yeah, but that's when you joined them.
Yeah, when I joined.
Because you were with Nightscaping up until the end.
Yes, I was with them. I was with them until 2009.
Yes.
And then I went to work for Focus.
So so you ended up coming back into AOLP in 2015.
Correct.
Right, working
Correct.
with Bill and all that.
Exactly.
Do you have any other kind of Do you have any other kind of early stories that you'd like to share about Bill? Or
about Bill?
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a funny story Bill talks about in design of lighting, right?
Uh-huh.
So at one point when he came back from the Navy, he was employed by the Redlands Bowl, which
Okay.
is the venue for events and things like that.
Gotcha.
So he worked with a lot of stage lighting at that time,
Uh-huh.
and he tells a story that is just always pretty funny, where there was a ballet going on, and everybody was in peach leotards,
Yeah.
and for some reason he pointed a peach filter from the big, set lights, and pointed it down at the people on the stage, and they all appeared to be in the nude, and so he made mistakes, So
Yeah.
one of the things.
Well, back in the day, that's how we did it, was filters.
Exactly.
You would filter the light, and you didn't always know what the light outcome was because it depended on the filter,
Absolutely.
the light source, whatever somebody was wearing, or whatever the backdrop might have been, and all
Exactly.
of that changed relatively quickly.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
after he told me that story, I started to actually experiment with lenses when I was contracting.
Uh-huh.
So that's where I learned about the moon blue lens, creating what would be 5700.
Mm-hmm.
And then he did have the silver green lens, which it was a light green lens, which when you put it on plant material that was like tropical,
Okay.
or
Would
like
give us some vibrancy.
yeah, like for instance, in my area we had all the saguaro cactuses, and when we illuminated that with a 50-watt lamp, and you got this beautiful light on the
Mhm.
saguaro, it looked like it did in the daytime, so it was pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's awesome, and I understand
Very
that.
impressive.
Yeah.
So that was fun.
Great.
One of the great things was working for Bill was we used to have a fireside chat every night,
Okay.
and Bill was a great man about making sure you were with your family. So he would yell at me, like if I called him after 6, he would yell at me and say, "Why aren't you at dinner with your family?"
Well, that's always good to know. That's a character
Absolutely,
builder.
absolutely. So, it was just a pleasure working for the man, and I gained a lot of insight and a lot of patience.
Yeah.
He taught me how to be patient with contractors, with people I was dealing with. Like, step back a minute, understand this person's point of view before you lose your mind. So that was one of the greatest things I learned from Bill Laughlin was a lot of patience.
Well, that's good, and he's obviously very instrumental in this industry.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Based on the story we just heard, he was the founder
He was the founder of
low voltage
lighting.
And then there's been some others that have come along that have been very, very popular in that, but that's for another story and another day.
Absolutely. But
anything else you'd like to share with us, just kind of in general, on any one of those kind of older foundational historical things?
Well, one of the cool things I've actually, I like landscape lighting artifacts, and I have one of the greatest artifacts ever to be found.
Which is what?
Which I have Bill Laughlin's original demo kit that there was only 4 made.
Well, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, so...
And you have that, at your house?
I actually have that at the office at Brilliant. So when we do seminars, one of the things we talk about, we bring that out. We bring out Frank Nightingale's original books and give people...
what was in the original demo kit?
So the original demo kit, Bill used to go to nurseries on the weekends. This was before there was really any commercial lighting being made like that. And what it was is he took a old Samsonite suitcase.
Understood.
Okay, and Bill, obviously being in the show business part of it, he had a tray that you could flip out, and then you could actually put a little skirt around this tray, and it had a couple of fixtures mounted on this tray.
Interesting.
Now, you would also pull up this shade screen, pull it up, and you'd asphyxiate it with like a half of a fishing pole.
Okay.
Again, Bill was very resourceful. He had a little transformer mounted in there, and the wiring went up to these different plugs. So what you could do is you could demonstrate the effects of the light. So there was a little portion where you could flip up some plastic plants, and you could shoot again, that was like a 1156 car tail light lamp in a little bullet.
With the plastic wedge base.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you would shine the light through the plant material, and you would show people how the shadows would appear on the wall.
That's interesting.
Okay. Then you could also do that behind, where you would shine the light behind and show backlighting effects.
And that's crazy interesting, because
exactly.
And a lot of the bulbs in that era, and they were up really up until LED became dominant.
Yes.
They were all from the automotive industry.
They were
or they were from
farming.
From automotive farming, but a lot of the 11, like the 908s and 911s, 3156s. See how good I am here at remembering all the stuff I'm supposed to know. A lot from the automotive industry, and then the MR16s all literally came from fashion, interior, retail, shopping, museums, jewelry stores, all of that. So that's where a lot of that lamping came from. Yeah,
exactly.
Well, that's super interesting. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for sharing to everybody. Like, we're going to see, how we take this story and make sure that a lot of these stories, I find them fascinating because, like there's a historical reference, and as well as we do great in the present, it's always good to acknowledge like where we started and where we came from.
Absolutely. We have to
credit.
have that. Yeah, we have to have that history behind us to be able to move forward.
Because who knows, at some point in the future, somebody might be like, "Hey, Kevin and Nick, look what everything that they did." Or, who knows, they may say it otherwise, but time will tell.
All we can do is just,
I know they always say good things about you, so I'm just glad to be in your company.
Well, they say good things about you too. So, as long as we can keep helping people, that's the most important thing. Like I always look at, how better can I make somebody else's life today?
Absolutely. I agree.
So
awesome. Well, thank you.
All righty.
Wonderful interview.
Thanks, Nick.
Yeah, absolutely.